Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. And this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com over the past week. A lot to discuss, but nothing massive. So if you want to skip this video, feel free. Did you skip yet? Maybe not. But the main things is Google talked about their indexing tiers and how they store more important or whatever content on more expensive storage devices. Google talked about their efforts in indexing different diverse languages. Google also released some crawl stat updates for the Google Search Console crawl stats report. And Google spoke about paying bloggers for content and if that's okay or not. So stay tuned. All right, so Gary from Google at the latest Search Off the Record podcast, which is a fun podcast to listen to, shared some nice little tidbits. I don't think any of it is specifically new or necessarily helpful, but it's interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. First thing he spoke about was search indexing tiers, and basically what that means is that if you have really great content, Google will, or content that Google wants to serve a lot, I guess, Google will want to put that content in an index that's on more expensive storage. So RAM is the most expensive, then I guess solid state drives, then on older drives, and then maybe floppy disks. It was kind of a joke with floppy disks, but basically, the more Google has to serve that content, the faster Google wants to serve that content, the faster the actual device and hardware Google has to put it on. So that's called indexing tiers, and obviously you want to make sure your content's on the most expensive indexing tiers. So you have to go ahead and optimize for Google's indexing tiers. I'm just joking. You don't have to optimize for indexing tiers. But just keep that in mind. It's interesting to see that Google does that. You have no idea what indexing tier your content's on. And it's probably on a URL by URL basis and so forth. So I wouldn't worry about it. It's just interesting to little tidbits. And Google has been doing this since day one, probably. Or almost day one. You get what I mean. Also, Gary said that they make a specific effort to make sure their index is diverse in terms of indexing various languages, even languages that people don't even speak much more, because Google wants to make sure to have a diverse set of languages in their index. And with that, Google is able to go ahead and surface content that somebody might search for in a language that's not always used. And Google tries their hardest to make sure that their content, their index is diverse with different languages. Google also updated something in Google Search Console this week, the crawl stats report, which they updated officially in a big way in November of 2020. Now they added additional types of crawls to the report. So if you see an increase in your crawl rates or crawl stats data as of, I believe, January 19th or so, 18th, 19th, you will probably be related to Google just being able to show more types of crawl, maybe ad bots, maybe video bots, maybe not just Google bots, but other variations of Google bot in there. So just keep that in mind. John Mueller talked about paying bloggers and if that's okay or not with your content or link strategy. And John Mueller said, if you're specifically paying bloggers for Dofollow backlinks, then that is a no-no. You're basically asking me, I'm paying bloggers to get me links that with follow links, making sure they do not have the no follow tag on it. That's going to be a no-no because you're paying them specifically to manipulate Google search rankings. Of course, content marketing is a very big thing these days, and that kind of borderlines on a lot of what SEOs do. One of the biggest things one of the complaints I had, not the biggest complaints, but one of the complaints I had about Google was that they're testing a featured snippet feature where they kind of overlay third-party or inject third-party links in your featured snippet. So now keep in mind, Bing does this as well. Doesn't make it right, but basically I have some screenshots here. You can see them in the screen. And we showed this back, I think, in last November as well, where Google was doing this. And now I'm seeing Google test this again. And it's basically going ahead and showing in the featured snippet, dotted lines in the content. Let's say your featured snippet is being highlighted. So Google takes your content, puts it on their own webpage. Great. And they link to you. Great. But now what they're doing is they're augmenting your content and by injecting links to other sites like Wikipedia or IMDb or any other website that they feel appropriate with your content, but you didn't link to these places. Google's injecting these links on your content and showing them in the search results. Google's testing this again. I wouldn't be happy if they launched it. Bing again does this, but maybe it's useful for the searcher, but I don't think Google should be injecting links in your content. If you put those links there, fine, but if you did not, Google should not be doing that. Google's also not testing, but kind of rolling out expandable knowledge panels. Google's been doing this for weeks, maybe months now, I think we saw them back in last November and so forth. So it's not uncommon, but these are the examples of expandable knowledge panels, which you can see on the screen right here. Google's also testing expandable accordion carousels. So if you're scrolling through the news, you can see a GIF of it here. Google's actually letting you expand it using those tabs, and it'll let you scroll through with a carousel type of approach for news, which is pretty cool. There was a complaint on Twitter that I found was interesting. One person was complaining that a health site, I think Healthline, was ranking well for non-medical queries, for content that not is very specifically medical. So the queries were how to stretch shoes, how to get rid of ants, baking soda versus baking powder, cream of tartar substitute, white vinegar, and his Healthline website is ranking really well. And they're like, why should a health website rank for keywords not related necessarily to health? Is it because the Medic update is giving a boost to health-related websites to rank for whatever they want, even though it's not health-related? And the answer was the content on that health site was pretty good for those queries. Just because of the health site, it could also rank about it's not exactly related to health, but maybe somebody's looking for the difference between baking soda and baking powder for maybe health reasons, or maybe their shoes hurt and they want to stretch them, and that's somewhat medical or health related. In any event, pretty much everything is medical and health related. So John Mueller's like, yeah, just because it's a medical site or health related site, it still could rank for queries if it has great content. Why not? Google said, John Mueller also said that putting structured data in Google Tag Manager is okay, but it's best when you're done testing that to make sure to put the structured data directly on the page. It makes it easier to manage, makes it easier for Google, makes it easier for you not to make mistakes. So with structured data, if possible, put it directly on that web page. Google said, and I asked this question, is there any time frame for when Google will show a soft 404 status in Google Search Console for your pages, your product pages that are e-commerce pages that are out of stock? So Google has for a long time said that if you have out-of-stock pages, you should 404 them most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. And if you don't, over time, Google will then consider that a soft 404 and label it such in Google Search Console. So I asked John Mueller if there's any time frame, and of course, John said there's no fixed time frame. Google is making a push to show more local news in the Google search results. So here's some screenshots of that. Google themselves said that they're actually making more of a push to show more local news in the actual search results. So that's pretty cool to see that Google's doing that. And you will see that often when you see top stories, you might see below that a local news section, which you can see in that screenshot below. Also, Mike Blumenfeld found this, that local review summary categories are now being tested to being grouped by place topics. And place topics are basically categories of your reviews. So if a lot of people leave reviews, you go to movies and people like the seats and they say great seats. And people say they like the food and they say great food. People say they like the location. So maybe Google will create categories of your reviews by food, by seats, by location, and then kind of summarize that. So now Google's showing summaries grouped by those place topics. And also they're also showing cards for third-party reviews from non-Google sources, which is pretty interesting. Google's also showing in the local panel old Google posts. Google posts from older than 7 days ago, posts from a month ago, from 2 months ago, from 6 months ago. So that's something that Google hasn't been doing, and now they're actually showing that. And finally, it looks like the Google Ads Insights tab is rolling out to more advertisers. Google started pushing this out, I think, last October and November, and now it seems like more and more over the past 2 weeks, more and more advertisers are seeing this Insights tab, this Insights button in the Google Ads console. In any event, thank you so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable, listingroundtable.com over the past week. Again, today is Friday, January 22nd. If you guys want to sponsor, hit me up. I have 2 videos per week that you can sponsor. The first one is sponsored by Brett D. Payne of Loud Interactive, and the other one is sponsored by SEMrush, the great SEO tool provider. So if you are interested in sponsoring, just hit me up. You could find me on Twitter or rustybrick.com/Barry. You can hit me up there. Everyone, thank you so much for listening and for commenting and liking and subscribing and telling your friends to subscribe. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.